Fursuits are an undeniable staple of the furry fandom. While they aren't required to get whatever fandom membership card we're apparently supposed to receive on entry, fursuits allow those who wear them to lessen the gap between them and their persona, taking the character they portray themselves as online and exporting them to the real world. Whether it be a common canine or a rainbow-infused sparkle dog, there's a fursuit maker out there ready and willing to bring your persona to life. Some with a much more eyebrow-raising past than others, but fursuit makers all the same. When it comes to the furry drama wheel, fursuits work similar to furry conventions, as while they have their own category on the wheel, you rarely see it landed on. Instead, it feels like an overlay that usually tags alongside other choices on the wheel. You'll rarely see a drama raised solely due to a fursuit, but instead the fursuit is usually a catalyst for another topic. That topic could be anything on the expansive drama wheel. In this next case, even politics. This fox fursuit named Arkansas is a fursuit that was made solely due to political reasons. If the fursuit being an anthropomorphized Confederate flag didn't give it away, this is told to us by the fursuit maker himself, Magnus Dirdian, in a Fur Affinity journal on December 8th, 2015. Here he would admit to being the creator behind the suit and explains his reasoning behind making it, saying, quote, "Due to the attacks this year on the Confederate flag, and especially seeing the flag taken down at the South Carolina state capitol, hearing the crowd cheer, and hearing Liberty die with thunderous applause, I decided that my next suit would keep it alive. Or at least that was my intention. The more you try to get rid of the flag, the more it appears." He continues on about how the Confederate flag isn't all that bad, and would contradict his initial reason for making the suit in the same journal, this time saying, "I like to have a new fursuit every year. I wanted something different. I tend to do things differently. Not for attention, as some might think, and most certainly not for sex. To showcase some creativity and maybe get a little better at building." Which feels false to a degree, as he would later go on about how the fursuit got everyone talking about it, also bringing detail to how another person would be banned from a furcon for wearing the fursuit during their fursuit parade, instead portraying it as them being banned for simply wearing a fursuit. It's quite obvious the suit was made to get a reaction, no matter how its creator decides to present the situation, as this wouldn't be the only fursuit Magnus made that would land him in hot water. 1 year earlier, Magnus could be seen making a fursuit to imitate one belonging to the late Lemonade Coyote. For context, Lemonade Coyote was an EMT who had spent his spare time fursuiting. His life was unfortunately cut short in 2013, where his ambulance would be broadsided by another vehicle, his life being taken in the accident. So while one could speculate the reasoning Magnus had when making a copy of Lemonade's fursuit, it was no doubt perceived in poor taste, as the first signs of this suit's production came to light a year after Lemonade's passing. Not to mention he did attend conventions wearing the suit when it was completed, such as Anthrocon 2017. So based on that, it shouldn't come as a surprise that the majority of suits made by Magnus are used to incite a reaction, something he would manage even recently when attending Anthro convention Free for All 2022. Where he would be recognized wearing his most infamous fursuit, as well as another knockoff suit, this time imitating that of user Braxton Doggo. Long story short, provocateurs such as Magnus are the prominent portion of this realm of drama. However, not every fursuit-related drama is caused by imitating others. Sometimes it can simply be caused by looking too similar. It's no secret that when two characters look similar online, the two will have to engage in a fight to the death. Death in this case ranging from making slight design changes to outright canceling the creation of a fursuit. In 2019, we would see the latter occur, as a client of fursuit maker LagoVirt would be accused of commissioning a fursuit to imitate that of fursuiter Vex Werewolf. On May 22nd, LagoVirt would post a progress image of a fursuit he was working on for a client. A suit that admittedly looks somewhat similar to that of Vex's. When this was brought to their attention, she would then quote tweet the post saying, "Y'all coulda at least asked me first." Like they're not even trying to hide it. I'm not even mad, I'm amused and astounded that they were this blatant about it. I guess I'm mildly affronted that someone stole my intellectual property without even asking. But to be honest, I'm mostly thinking of it as, yes, I made it to the big leagues, baby. I'm so distinctive and unique, people have no choice but to bite my style. I'm a real puppy fur now. Also, dude follows me, so there's literally no chance he didn't know about this. From this point forward, this was portrayed as Lycanworks making a rip-off fursuit of another fursuiter's design for a random person who had commissioned them. It would get to the point that the commissioner would talk to Lycanworks, saying that they wanted to cancel the commission without refund. They continued, saying it was his fault for commissioning a suit similar to Vex's design. The fursuit maker confirmed that the suit wouldn't be used in its current form, and that they would strictly refuse to accept commissions if the character design was too similar to a suit that already existed. They took a rather militant stance on this, even saying that if another substantial claim like this is made, then they'll simply cancel the commission and destroy the suit in question without refund. Looking through the situation, I can't help but feel that this was slightly blown out of proportion. There's something about all that work being thrown to the waste bin just because your character looks too similar to someone else's that doesn't really sit right with me. Especially in the furry fandom, where not only are there fox and wolf personas for miles, but the fact that most of our personas are based off animals. It would be like making a black cat character, only to end up getting sued because Sabrina the Teenage Witch or Soul Eater exists. Looking at the suits side by side, I can see where the argument is stemmed from, but personally I just don't feel ripping off Vex was a planned goal here. Now, don't get me wrong, there have been situations where a person willingly commissioned a fursuit to imitate someone else, but in this situation, I just can't find the malice. Maybe it's just the hindsight of 4 years talking, but with how animals are, I can't really see much intent to imitate or rip off here. Having a similar character design isn't the only thing that could be considered a sin in portions of the fandom. It could simply be the character design itself. Maybe you gave your character an accessory that's regarded as spiritual or symbolic to a specific race of people. You know, like Dreadlocks. This was a rather small situation that would occur in March of 2022, where the fursuit maker Lolo Fennec would post a call-out post. It would read, "Hey guys, I want to bring your attention to something that's been incredibly racist in the community. Do not support Nymeria. Many folks, including Black voices, have reached out to inform her that her hair choice for her suit is cultural appropriation." Screenshots below this tweet would show messages sent to Nymeria, saying that since Nymeria was white, that her character shouldn't have dreadlocks. There was also interactions that arose due to this issue where she was asked to reconsider the hairstyle she gave her character. In response, saying that her character wasn't white, she's a wolf based off Wolf Link from Twilight Princess, and that long matted hair didn't belong to anyone. Normally I don't talk on topics such as these because I feel I lack the knowledge and needed nuance to discuss these cultural topics on a level I prefer. But as a person of color, I don't necessarily feel that my culture is being taken from me when a white person gives their wolf character a hairstyle that originated from the Greek. Some may feel differently about that, and that's perfectly fine. But in some situations, that might come off as pandering or virtue signaling, something that would result in Lolo issuing an apology not too soon afterwards. It would read, "After spending time listening to several voices today, in regards to yesterday's happenings, I want to offer an apology to those I shut down and hurt yesterday. I'll do better to amplify Black voices instead of speaking over them. I'm sorry for the hurt I spread while I was trying to protect people I care about. I was seeing red because there were people I knew that were hurting and I felt I had to say something. I'm very sorry for the people I hurt through my anger. I promise I won't let this happen again." And to her credit, this hasn't occurred again following this small scuffle. However, hairstyles alone aren't the only problematic asset a fursuit can have. Anthrocon 2022 took place from June 29th to July 2nd. Being one of the largest furry conventions in the world today, it's no surprise the event managed to have such a huge turnout. However, there was one person attending this convention that would grab a hold of the spotlight for a while, becoming a point of debate in the fandom. Fiona Murray is a horse fursuiter and streamer. one who had caught the attention of the masses through her assets, that being her ass and set of breasts respectively. The reason for this being that they are quite massive. Hyper, one might say. And with Anthrocon having a reputation of being a convention for all ages to attend within reason, seeing a horse fursuit with massive breasts bouncing in the wind while decorated with only a skimpy swimsuit would reasonably turn some heads, many of which asking if it was suitable to wear a fursuit like this at an all-ages convention. To some, this appeared to be a fetish-oriented fursuit of sorts, an argument I personally see some merit in, as hard as it is to argue it without coming off as an incel. But to others, the fursuit was perfectly acceptable, as there are women in real life who do possess breasts of that magnitude. This will result in an argument that honestly baffled me when I first came across it. The question of the suit being fetish-oriented would then evolve into the question of, are the complaints towards her suit fueled by misogyny? Yeah, the direction of this debate got derailed rather quick, going into claims that if you were okay with a male fursuit fetishizing the more masculine aspects, but not okay with Fiona's fursuit, you were actively encouraging harm towards women, from the over-sexualization of women's bodies all the way up to normalizing rape culture. This was one of the more confusing points, as the entire thing felt like one big false equivalence. People would claim that breasts aren't inherently sexual, while comparing them to bulges and other aspects of men that people sexualize. So you have to assume that this also argues that bulges aren't inherently sexual either, which would be wrong. I understand what's trying to be said here, that breasts, hips, and butt aren't inherently sexual body parts, but it just didn't come together correctly throughout this discussion. There was just no way you could claim the suit isn't sexualized while also saying it's misogynistic, that people are okay with male fetishized suits, but not this. Is her suit sexualized or not? Depends on who you asked, I guess. Regardless of your stance on the matter, the talk surrounding this fursuit garnered Fiona a pretty sizable amount of clout, as well as some notoriety to go along with it, whether it be the debate against Fiona's displays launching into insults, or those accusing Fiona of being a zoophile due to the not safe for work art she has of her character. From what I've witnessed, there appears to be no feral content, but I understand the claim being made due to the involvement of anatomically correct animal nethers. I don't believe it inherently makes her zoophile, but from an outsider's perspective I can certainly understand where the claim came from. Needless to say, she doesn't identify as one, so I won't be making any assertions without proper proof. At the bottom line, Fiona is simply an eccentric fursuiter, whether in the body positivity or provocative senses for the viewer to interpret, but that does bring up a subsection of fursuits that have spawned their own small niche of issues, that being Murrsuits. For the unaware, Murrsuits are just fursuits, but made with sexual acts in mind. The majority of fursuits are made for the sole purpose of wearing them and cosplaying as your furry character. Murrsuits do the same thing, but in the bedroom. Not required, but heavily preferred. While Murrsuits usually aren't too provocative in nature, usually only possessing a slit to expose an obvious region, it would be obvious as to why you probably shouldn't wear a Murrsuit at a public event like a convention. But obviously, given the size of the fandom, some have done just that to varying results. There are a few fursuits out there that also double as a Murrsuit, able to conceal the more sexually aimed portions of their apparel until they're needed. Kinda like how clothes work. When this is the case, how do you know if you're interacting with a fursuit or a Murrsuit? Well, it's usually pretty obvious, but let's say for the sake of the argument that you wanted to, I don't know, create a website to document those who use their Murrsuits both in private and in public. Sadly, someone's already beaten you to the punch. Introducing Connor Goodwolf, or Insane Kangaroo, a rather interesting member of the furry fandom. In layman's terms, he's your textbook egomaniac, but among his history of playing internet vigilante and being inappropriate around minors, there lies a project of his, a way in which he planned to help the fandom. His plan was to make a website where people could document any member of the fandom who owned a Murrsuit. He would eventually act on this idea, launching a website in January of 2011. It was named Do Not Hug, the unofficial Don't Hug Me Bro Murrsuit database. It was certainly a product of its time. The website set out to do exactly as I mentioned previously, document any furry who has Murrsuit. The reasoning for this site's existence was given on the main page. It reads, "The purpose of this application is to inform people of fursuits, also known as Murrsuits, who wish not to have contact with such individuals. Clearly, many individuals do not wish to have any contact of sorts, not only due to the ick factor, but for health issues surrounding bodily fluids on such fursuits. Do Murrsuiters put their whole head through the wash? No. They usually use chemical cleaners or soapy water, which is not enough. You think people wash their bodysuits every time they have sex? No. They wash them right before they go into public, where the crust from bodily fluids are still encrusted on the fur." The way information is listed on this site is similar to a lot of forum-based websites, best described as an offshoot of 4chan. And while you can argue a thread with the intention of making people aware who Murrsuits isn't an inherent wrong, you can also argue that without proper moderation, this was a recipe for malicious actors to make their move, potentially doxing and sharing the personal information of Murrsuiters. Luckily, this didn't appear to be the case, as the site would go down in the same year. The exact date of this happening somewhere between March and September. While it would be beneficial to know if the fursuiter you're about to hug is coded in a personal exchange, creating a public database that can easily be exploited probably isn't the best way to get that info out there. Sad to say, but the best way to do it would probably be with a callout or hoping that there's a sign you shouldn't interact with a person beforehand. Maybe like a stench of some kind. A stench that would probably kill you after enough exposure. Carpet samples is a pretty widespread tale among the furry fandom, almost to the point of feeling like an urban legend. But I assure you, the suit and the man behind it are very real. Being the result of a plushophile's sexual past, Shadow Wolf S, or Bill J. Clark, composed this amalgamation entirely out of the remains of stuffed animals he had his way with. At no point during the process of railing, skinning, and grafting were these plushies washed or cleaned in any way, resulting in not only a fursuit akin to a work of Buffalo Bill J. Clark, but a fursuit emitting a smell so terrible that encountering it works similarly to a Five Nights at Freddy's encounter. A user on Reddit would tell how they were able to smell carpet samples nearby before they even saw him. One can only assume this is the only way to evade him if he happens to be at the same convention as you, as when you see him, it's probably too late for you. The worst part is, this isn't even really an exaggeration. While he might not have killed at least 5 children, there have been encounters with carpet samples where convention attendees were followed down alleyways by the suitor, Bill only disengaging with the group when they made their way to the safety of con security. There are also tellings where this suit would stalk someone at a furry convention to get their attention, before talking their ear off about their hero Hannibal Lecter or the sexual nature of their many fictional characters. Like I said in the start, the fursuit is usually the vessel for a much more worrying issue to be put in the light, but carpet samples is a special case where the horrifying contents are hidden under a colorful or disarming wrapper. Beneath this fursuit, composed of defiled stuffed animals, is a man in his late 60s, eager to overshare about his worrying interests in fursuit making and fornicating with animals. Yeah, you heard me right. On top of being a plushophile, Bill is also an admitted zoophile, admitting to engaging in real-life bestiality at a local animal shelter he worked at with a 1-year-old golden retriever. A sickening act made less surprising due to the suit this subhuman is known for. The behavior you'd expect from someone wearing the spoils of their fetish on their literal sleeves, as well as, every other part of their fucking body. But while he's being mocked and made fun of for the horrid pseudo-vagina-possessing suit he takes pride in, yes, it also doubles as a Murrsuit if you weren't horrified enough, at least he made it himself, right? I mean, with the price of some fursuits out there, could you imagine if you paid upwards of $5,000 just to be exiled from the majority of the fandom? Okay, so about that. Founded by Lucky and Scuff Coyote, Don't Hug Cacti is perhaps one of the most infamous fursuit makers in the fandom. However, newer members of the fandom might not be too familiar with their track record of controversy, as the allegations against them hadn't made the rounds until September of 2020. It was here where furry artist Q10s would publish a Google document sharing countless testimonies aimed against Lucky Coyote. The testimonies would speak of Lucky love bombing her fans for her own personal gain before cutting all connection with them. One of these would tell about Lucky coaxing a minor into a private sexual situation before spilling the details to those around her. Others use her artwork to label her as a zoophile, as the placement of the paw mark on her character resembles that of a zoophile calling card. And to tie off the trifecta of pedophilia and zoophilia allegations, there would also be animal abuse. Records showing Lucky adopting animals before she would either put them down herself or immediately rehome them. As these allegations went public, the image of Don't Hug Cacti shifted heavily, only moved more by Scuff Coyote's statement in October, saying that DHC doesn't condone immoral or illegal activity, before going on to explain that the situation was stressful for the company's team of 5 full-time employees, and how the company raised $7,000 for animal rescues. He would also state that Lucky, at the time known as Blonde Foxy, wasn't the owner of DHC, and that she had left social media to receive treatment for social media addiction and other personal issues. One could argue that not addressing the claims and simply saying it was stressful for the team, before mentioning the charity work you've done, wasn't the best way to address the triforce of harming the helpless. But things only looked worse as Scuff would delete this post in the following month. Scuff saw the situation as the drama of the month, saying in a Telegram chat for the group that it was time to move on from it, as he had left the thread up for a month. Things wouldn't look much better on February 4th of 2021, as DHC would publish an official statement saying, "Our company has recently become the subject of online attacks after a few individuals had a personal dispute with one of our affiliates. These extreme, false allegations become more flagrant and embellished each time they are repeated on social media, and have escalated to harassment against our team members. We will not tolerate attacks against our employees, affiliates, or customers, and will be seeking legal recourse. We are exploring all of our legal avenues to address these attacks." This being said with no form of debunking whatsoever, simply a claim that the testimonies are false and labeling them as harassment without giving them the time of day. Pretty great as far as corrupt business practices go, allegedly, but pretty horrid when it comes to public image. Regardless, it seems that the only legal avenue they would explore publicly was that of threatening Q10s with a cease and desist for releasing the allegations, a threat that wouldn't be followed up on as it appears the company has no reason to. As Scuff said back in 2020, suits are selling, employees are getting paid. As it stands, there's no incentive to ever publicly address these allegations when people are still willing to throw $4,000 to $5,000 at them just to get a fursuit. And with these allegations only popping up whenever someone with a sizable platform buys a DHC fursuit, most usually find themselves unaware of DHC's reputation, confused as to why everyone's getting mad at someone who just purchased one from them recently. Not to mention on top of that, you do still have those devoting most of their online existence to defending the brand regardless of the allegations, as well as the lack of response concerning them. Moral of the story, don't buy DHC. That $5,000 will do you so much better elsewhere. But I think this has given a pretty good overview of how the furry drama wheel handles fursuits. One of those spaces that you can land on just to get told to spin the wheel again, more often than not landing on something even worse. But until that time comes, I've been LagoVirt, and until next time, stay safe out there.
Funding for this program was made possible by